I didn't start drinking this because I believed in a miracle. In fact, I stumbled into it for a reason that feels almost embarrassing to admit. About 2 years ago, I was dealing with a nagging sensation in my hands. It wasn't pain, not the sharp kind that sends you to a doctor. It was more of a stiffness, a creaky feeling in the mornings that would take a good 20 minutes and a hot cup of tea to shake loose. I assumed it was just the mileage. You know the feeling, like the machinery is just a little older, a little rustier than it used to be. I was curious. Not desperate. I started experimenting with different ingredients in my kitchen, not looking to cure anything, but just hoping to lubricate the machine. I began mixing a specific combination of spices and citrus into warm water, thinking I was just making a tastier, more nutrient-dense version of tea. I drank it for about a week. Then, one morning, I woke up, swung my legs out of bed, and walked to the kitchen to start the kettle. I got halfway to the stove and stopped. I looked down at my hands. The stiffness was gone. I hadn't even thought about it until that moment. It was just gone. That absence of sensation was the loudest signal I had ever received from my body. It wasn't a drug-like suppression of a symptom. It felt like a conversation had ended peacefully. The noise had stopped. This is the story of what was actually happening in that quiet moment, and how a simple daily shot can speak directly to the root of why we feel older than our years. 2. The thesis reframe. If you are over 40, you have likely heard the word inflammation so many times that it has lost all meaning. It's become a catch-all bogeyman, blamed for everything from wrinkles to heart disease. We are told to fight it, to extinguish it, to go to war with our own bodies. But this is where the conventional narrative leads us astray. Inflammation is not your enemy. In fact, without it, you would die from a simple paper cut within days. It is the body's incredible, intelligent response to injury and invaders. The real problem isn't inflammation. The real problem is a broken peace treaty. As we age, specifically as we cross the threshold into our 40s and 50s, something shifts deep within our tissues. The immune system doesn't necessarily get weaker, it gets noisier. It loses its ability to distinguish between a real threat and a false alarm. It begins to broadcast a low-level distress signal constantly, a phenomenon scientists have termed inflammaging. It's like a smoke alarm that keeps beeping because the battery is low, even though there is no fire. This constant, low-grade hum of immune activity wears down our organs, stiffens our arteries, clouds our thinking, and literally accelerates the aging process at a cellular level. To understand how a simple daily shot can silence that false alarm, we have to introduce one of the most fascinating and underappreciated systems in your body, the cholinergic anti-inflammatory pathway. This is a dedicated neural circuit, a superhighway of communication, running from your brain, down your vagus nerve, and directly into your spleen and gut. It is the body's primary mechanism for actively turning off inflammation. It doesn't just mask the smoke, it resets the alarm. The drink we are going to discuss works not by bombarding your system with foreign chemicals, but by gently waking up this vagus nerve pathway, teaching your own body to restore the peace. 3. The mechanism. So, how does a warm cup of liquid speak to a nerve? It seems almost mystical, but the biology is stunningly elegant. It works through a 3-part physiological cascade that transforms kitchen spices into a neurological command. Part 1. The cephalic phase. The brain gets a preview. The moment the aroma of ginger and lemon hits your olfactory nerves, and the moment the warm liquid touches your taste buds, you initiate what is called a cephalic phase response. This isn't about digestion yet, this is about anticipation. Your brain samples the incoming data and realizes, here come specific phytochemicals, gingerols, shogaols, curcuminoids. It immediately sends a preparatory signal down the vagus nerve, telling the gut, get ready, we have important compounds arriving that need to be absorbed and utilized. Part 2. The gut-brain signal, activating the vagus nerve. As the liquid moves into your stomach and small intestine, the compounds themselves, particularly the more pungent ones like the gingerols in fresh ginger and the piperine in black pepper, interact directly with receptors on the intestinal wall. This interaction is the key. It generates a sensory signal that travels back up the vagus nerve to the brainstem at a speed and intensity that says, potent anti-inflammatory compounds detected. Research shows that activating these specific vagal afferent fibers can suppress systemic inflammation by a remarkable margin. Part 3. The cholinergic command, silencing the macrophages. The brainstem, specifically the nucleus tractus solitarius, receives this signal and, in response, fires an electrical impulse back down the vagus nerve. This efferent signal travels all the way to the spleen, the body's largest immune hub, and the gut-associated lymphoid tissue. Here, the nerve releases acetylcholine. This neurotransmitter binds to specific receptors, called alpha-7 nicotinic receptors, on the surface of immune cells, specifically the macrophages that are pumping out those noisy inflammatory signals. When acetylcholine docks onto a macrophage, it effectively tells it to stand down. It inhibits the nuclear factor kappa B, NF-κB, which is the master switch for inflammation. It stops the production of tumor necrosis factor, TNF, and interleukin-6. The fire hall is shut off, not by a chemical bludgeon, but by the body's own neural command. 4. The benefits countdown. Now that we understand the mechanism, the vagus nerve immune dialogue, let's look at the specific, tangible benefits of initiating this conversation daily. We're going to count them down from 10 to 1, each one building on the last, moving from the obvious physical changes to the profound systemic reset. Benefit number 10. The disappearance of morning stiffness. This is the signal that started my journey, and it's often the first thing people notice. That creaky, rusty feeling in your hands, knees, or lower back when you first wake up is a classic sign of nocturnal inflammation resolution failure. The mechanism. Overnight, your body is theoretically supposed to clean house, clearing out the metabolic debris and inflammatory cytokines that accumulated during the day. As we age, this nightly cleanup crew gets sluggish. By activating the cholinergic anti-inflammatory pathway with your morning shot, you are effectively waking up the janitors. The vagal signal tells the resident macrophages in your joints to shift from a pro-inflammatory state to a pro-resolution state. What's happening? You aren't lubricating the joints like oil in a hinge. You are telling the immune cells inside the synovial fluid to stop producing the irritants that make the joint capsule feel tight and swollen. The feeling of smoothness in the morning is the sensation of inflammation being actively resolved before you even take your first step. Benefit number 9. Sharper post-meal mental clarity. Have you ever noticed how a heavy meal can put you in a food coma, making your brain feel foggy and slow? This is partially due to postprandial inflammation, a spike in cytokines triggered by processing a large load of fats and sugars. The mechanism. This is where the gut-brain axis becomes critical. The compounds in the daily shot prime the vagus nerve before you eat. If you consume this shot 15-20 minutes before a meal, the cephalic phase response has already activated the parasympathetic nervous system. Your gut is now in a rest and digest state, not a panic and process state. The scientific cascade, a calm gut mediated by a toned vagus nerve, sends different signals to the brain. Instead of sending up flares of inflammation, which contribute to brain fog, it sends satiety and satisfaction signals. Over time, this daily practice can recalibrate the gut-brain conversation, leading to a noticeable lifting of the mental haze that often follows eating. Benefit number 8. Reduction of deep, aching joint pain. Unlike the sharp pain of an injury, the deep, aching pain in knees, hips, or shoulders is often driven by low-grade inflammation in the connective tissue. This is a classic symptom of inflammaging. The mechanism. Recent research from institutions like Yale has identified specific immune cells, called nerve-associated macrophages, NAMs, that reside in our fat tissue and help regulate inflammation. These NAMs decline as we age, while another, more inflammatory type of macrophage emerges. The vagal signal triggered by our daily shot helps to counterbalance this age-related shift. The connection. By promoting the healthy macrophage phenotype and suppressing the inflammatory one, you are directly addressing the immune cell imbalance that causes that deep, persistent ache. It's not about masking the pain, it's about changing the cellular environment that creates the pain. Benefit number 7. Better sleep quality, particularly deep sleep. We often think of sleep as a neurological process, but it is deeply dependent on immune function. Inflammation is a notorious sleep disruptor. High levels of cytokines like IL-6 and TNF-alpha can interfere with the architecture of sleep, reducing the amount of time we spend in restorative deep sleep. The mechanism. The vagus nerve is the primary driver of the parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and digest system that is a prerequisite for sleep. Activating it during the day, especially through sensory means like this drink, improves something called heart rate variability, HRV, a direct marker of vagal tone. The nighttime effect. Higher vagal tone during the day means a more resilient nervous system at night. You are better able to transition from the sympathetic fight-or-flight state to the parasympathetic state required for sleep. Furthermore, by lowering the systemic inflammatory noise, you remove a barrier that keeps the brain in a lighter, more vigilant state of rest. Benefit number 6, a calmer, less reactive gut. For the 40-plus demographic, digestive complaints often shift from acute issues like food poisoning to chronic discomfort, bloating, gas, and irregularity. This is often a sign of low-grade intestinal inflammation and a breakdown of the gut barrier. The mechanism. The gut microbiome is in constant dialogue with the immune system. When the gut wall is irritated, it sends distress signals that activate local immune cells. The phytochemicals in the shot, specifically the polyphenols from ginger and turmeric, don't just get absorbed, they travel through the gut, interacting with the epithelial cells that line the intestinal wall. The result, this interaction strengthens the tight junctions between those cells, reducing leaky gut, and calms the underlying immune tissue. A calmer gut means better nutrient absorption, less bloating, and a more diverse and happy microbiome. The shot acts as a soothing signal to the entire enteric nervous system. Benefit number 5, visible changes in skin texture and tone. Our skin is a mirror of our internal inflammation. Chronic inflammation breaks down collagen and elastin, leading to sagging, fine lines, and a sallow complexion. This process is driven by the same NF-κB pathways we discussed earlier. The mechanism. When you successfully lower systemic inflammation via the vagus nerve, the microcirculation in your skin improves. Specialized pro-resolving mediators, SPMs, which are derived from omega-3 fatty acids and are crucial for ending inflammation, become more active. These SPMs are the clean-up crew that removes cellular debris from skin tissue. The visible difference. With reduced inflammatory signals and enhanced resolution, the skin's fibroblasts can function more efficiently. You may notice a return of a healthy morning glow, a more even skin tone, and a subtle plumping effect as the skin matrix is no longer under constant inflammatory assault. Benefit number 4, improved lymphatic flow and reduced puffiness. That puffy feeling, especially under the eyes or in the ankles, isn't just fat or water. It's often glycoprotein-rich fluid that accumulates when the lymphatic system is sluggish. The lymphatic system has no central pump. It relies on muscle movement and the pressure changes created by breathing and the nervous system. The mechanism. The vagus nerve influences the rhythmic contractions of the lymphatic vessels. A high vagal tone facilitates the movement of lymph, which is essentially the body's sewage system. This fluid carries inflammatory debris away from tissues to be filtered and discarded. The connection. By stimulating the parasympathetic state, the daily shot encourages deeper breathing and a relaxation response that acts as an internal pump for the lymph. The reduction in puffiness is literally the physical drainage of inflammatory byproducts that have been stuck in the interstitial spaces of your face and body. Benefit number 3, stabilization of mood and resilience to stress. There is a reason we call it gut feeling. The gut produces over 90% of the body's serotonin, and the vagus nerve is the data cable that reports the state of the gut to the brain. An inflamed gut sends danger signals to the brain, which can manifest as anxiety, low mood, or a short temper. The mechanism. This is the gut-brain axis in action. The anti-inflammatory compounds in the shot calm the gut environment. The gut, now peaceful, sends signals of safety and satiety up the vagus nerve to the brainstem and the limbic system, the emotional center of the brain. The emotional outcome. This bottom-up signaling has a profound effect on mood. It increases what researchers call vagal brake, which is your ability to calm down quickly after a stressful event. You don't necessarily eliminate stress, but you become more resilient to it. You bounce back faster. The shot becomes a daily practice in emotional regulation, anchored in physiology. Benefit number 2, protection of the vascular system. Cardiovascular disease is, at its core, an inflammatory disease. The buildup of plaque in the arteries is not just a matter of cholesterol, it's a wound-healing response gone haywire, driven by chronic inflammation of the endothelial lining. The mechanism. The NF-κB inhibition we get from compounds like those in turmeric and ginger is critically important here. When the endothelial cells lining your blood vessels are bathed in a sea of inflammatory cytokines, they become sticky, attracting immune cells and starting the plaque formation process. The protective action. By activating the cholinergic anti-inflammatory pathway, you are reducing the inflammatory tone of the entire vascular system. The endothelial cells relax, blood pressure can normalize, and the dangerous cascade of vascular inflammation is dampened. you are effectively protecting the delicate inner lining of every artery and vein in your body. 5. The number 1 reveal. Benefit number 1, the master regulator, epigenetic resilience. And now we arrive at benefit number 1, the real secret. The reason this simple daily shot is more than the sum of its parts. We have talked about reducing stiffness, clearing brain fog, calming the gut, and protecting the heart. All of those are phenomenal. But the ultimate benefit of consistently activating this vagal immune dialogue is that you are changing the very way your genes are read. You are building epigenetic resilience. Remember the Yale research that identified how macrophages change with age, driving inflammaging, and the research showing how vagal nerve stimulation can suppress TNF by 88%, and how curcuminoids interfere with the NF-kB switch. When you combine all of this, you are not just treating today's inflammation, you are resetting the thermostat of your immune system. Every time you drink this shot, the sensory signal travels up the vagus nerve, and the calming, cholinergic signal travels back down. This signal tells the nucleus of your immune cells, this is the baseline, this is peace, this is normal. Over time, the immune cells become educated to this new, quieter set point. The inflammatory genes are expressed less frequently. The pro-resolution genes are dialed up. This is the opposite of aging. Aging, at a molecular level, is the loss of regulatory control. The noise gets louder, the signals get crossed. By engaging this ancient, hardwired neural immune circuit daily, you are actively reinforcing the master regulatory system that keeps the noise down. You aren't just slowing down the clock, you are turning down the volume of time itself. The method, a simple, warm, aromatic drink, matters more than any single active ingredient because it speaks the body's native language, the language of nerve and cell communication. 6. Practical application. This isn't about a complicated protocol. It's about consistency and quality. Here is how to build this practice safely and effectively. The recipe, the inflammaging intervention, shot. The base, 8–10 ounces of warm, not boiling water. Hot water helps extract the compounds and soothes the vagus nerve instantly. The fat-soluble transport, 1 teaspoon of a high-quality, cold-pressed olive oil or a teaspoon of MCT oil. The key polyphenols are fat-soluble, meaning they need fat to be absorbed into your lymph and bloodstream. The primary actives, fresh ginger, a 1-inch piece, finely grated. Fresh ginger contains higher levels of gingerol, the potent anti-inflammatory compound that provides the initial pungent signal to the vagus nerve. Turmeric, 1 to 2 to 1 teaspoon of high-quality turmeric powder. If you can use fresh, even better, but powder is potent and accessible. Black pepper, a generous pinch, contains piperine, which not only makes turmeric 2,000% more bioavailable, but also adds its own anti-inflammatory and vagal-stimulating effect. The catalyst, juice of 1 or 2 of fresh lemon, the vitamin C and citrus bioflavonoids support the immune response and aid in the absorption of the polyphenols. The synergist, a tiny pinch of cayenne pepper, optional but its capsaicin also stimulates sensory receptors along the gut lining. The method, the how-to, grate and mix. Put the grated ginger, turmeric powder, and black pepper into a mug. Add oil. Add the teaspoon of olive or MCT oil. Pour and steep. Pour the warm water over the mixture. Let it steep for 5–10 minutes. This allows the heat and water to extract the compounds. Finish. Squeeze in the fresh lemon juice and add the cayenne. Stir well. The ritual. Crucial. Do not chug this. Sit down. Hold the warm mug in your hands. Bring it to your face and inhale the steam for 3 deep breaths. Then, take small sips, holding it in your mouth for a moment before swallowing. This mindful consumption massively amplifies the cephalic phase response and the vagal activation. Frequency and timing, daily. For best results, consume this 5 to 7 times per week. Timing, ideally 15–20 minutes before your first meal. This primes the gut and nervous system for the day. Alternatively, it can be consumed as a gentle afternoon reset around 2–3 p.m. instead of coffee. 7. Critical safety warnings. This protocol is powerful because it is physiological. However, because it is powerful, it requires respect. Gallbladder issues. If you have a history of gallstones or have had your gallbladder removed, start with half the amount of oil. The sudden release of bile can cause discomfort. If you feel any pain in your upper right abdomen, reduce the oil or stop. Blood-thinning medications. Turmeric and ginger are natural blood thinners. If you are on prescription anticoagulants like warfarin, Coumadin, clopidogrel, Plavix, or even high-dose aspirin, you must consult your doctor before starting this daily. The combination could potentiate the effects and increase bleeding risk. Scheduled surgery. Stop drinking this shot at least 2 weeks before any scheduled surgery to ensure normal blood clotting. Stomach sensitivity. If you have an active gastric ulcer or severe acid reflux, the ginger and cayenne may be irritating. Start with a very mild version, no cayenne, less ginger, and only drink it after a small meal, not before, to see how your body reacts. Iron absorption. Turmeric can inhibit iron absorption. If you are anemic or rely on plant-based iron sources, consume this shot away from your high-iron meals, at least 2 to 3 hours apart. Listen to your body. If you develop a rash, hives, or digestive distress, stop immediately, while rare allergies to these foods exist. 8. Engagement closing. The discovery that a kitchen spice can speak to a nerve and that a nerve can command an army of immune cells is one of the most empowering truths I have ever encountered. It pulls the curtain back on the mystery of aging and reveals that our bodies are listening. They are waiting for the right signals. So, here is my question for the comments below. What is the one sign of aging, whether it's physical, mental, or emotional, that you suspect might be inflammation in disguise? And are you willing to try this signal for 7 days to see what changes? If you found this explanation helpful, if it made you feel smarter about your own biology, please hit that subscribe button. We are just scratching the surface of how to speak your body's language. You don't need to fight your body. You just need to learn how to talk to it again. This daily shot is a conversation starter. Drink it slowly. Listen closely. You might be surprised by what your body has been trying to tell you all along.